Jake Morrison had been a ship captain for 12 years, but he had never seen anything like this. His ship floated through space above what used to be New Eden Colony. The planet below looked like someone had taken a giant hammer to it. Cities were gone. Farms were burned black. Nothing moved on the surface. "Captain," said Lisa Grant from her seat at the communications desk. Her voice was quiet and scared. "I'm getting a signal from the planet. It's very weak." Jake looked at the main screen. New Eden had been home to 50,000 people just 3 days ago. Now it looked dead. The air was full of smoke and dust. He could see the broken pieces of buildings floating in space around his ship. "Put the signal on speaker," Jake said. The voice that came through was broken and full of static. It was Ryan Parker, who had been in charge of the colony. This is New Eden Central Command. If anyone can hear this, they turned on us. The Zephyrians, they just started shooting. No warning, no reason. They killed everyone. They killed the children first." The message cut off. Jake felt his stomach turn cold. The Zephyrians had been humanity's friends for 3 years. They had helped humans build colonies on new worlds. They had shared their technology. They had eaten meals together and talked about the future. "Sir," said Dr. Amanda Stone, the ship's alien expert, "I'm reading some kind of data storage device on the planet. It might have more information." Jake nodded. "Send a team down to get it. Be careful." 2 hours later, the away team came back with a small black box. Amanda plugged it into the ship's computer. What they found made everyone on the bridge go silent. The box contained hundreds of files, videos, messages, and reports. All of them painted the same terrible picture. The Zephyrians had never been humanity's friends. They had been studying humans like bugs under a microscope. Every meeting, every shared meal, every friendly conversation had been fake. One video showed a Zephyrian meeting. The aliens sat around a table talking in their own language. The computer translated their words into English. What Jake heard made his blood freeze. "The humans trust us completely," said one Zephyrian. "They have shown us all their military bases. They have told us about their weapons. They think we are partners." Another Zephyrian made a sound that might have been laughter. "Foolish creatures. When we are ready, we will remove them from all the worlds they have contaminated. It will be quick and clean." "What about the young ones?" asked a third alien. "All of them," the first one said. "Every human, young and old. They breed too fast and spread too quickly. They are like a disease." Amanda's hands were shaking as she played more files. The Zephyrians had detailed maps of every human colony. They knew where the power plants were, where the schools were, where people lived. They had been planning this attack for months. "Captain," Amanda said, her voice breaking, "there are more files here, reports from other planets. The Zephyrians have done this before. Lots of times." The files showed a horrible pattern. The Zephyrians would find a new species. They would pretend to be friends. They would learn everything about the new species. Then they would kill them all and take their planets. The Alterans had been artists and musicians. The Zephyrians had pretended to love their culture. Then they had poisoned their air and watched them die. The Celtic people had been great builders. The Zephyrians had learned their secrets, then dropped bombs on their cities. The Sindari had been peaceful farmers. The Zephyrians had burned their crops and let them starve. "How many?" Jake asked quietly. Amanda looked at the files with tears in her eyes. 17 species. All gone. We're number 18. Jake stared at the screen. 3 days ago, he had been having dinner with Zephyrian officers on the space station near Earth. They had laughed together. They had talked about building more colonies together. One of them had shown Jake pictures of his own family. It had all been lies. "Sir," Lisa said from her communications post, "I'm getting reports from other human colonies. The attacks aren't stopping. They hit New Eden first, but now they're attacking everywhere." The reports came in one after another. Brighton Colony was under attack. The mining station at Beta 7 was gone. The research base on Kepler Prime had gone silent. Everywhere humans had built something, Zephyrian ships were destroying it. Jake watched the reports come in, and felt something change inside him. 3 days ago, he had believed in friendship between species. He had believed in peace and cooperation. He had believed that different kinds of people could work together to build something better. Now he knew the truth. Humans were alone in the galaxy. The beings they had trusted wanted them dead, not just defeated, not just driven away, dead, all of them, every man, woman, and child. "Captain," said his second in command, "what are your orders?" Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They were good people. Lisa had a husband and 2 kids back on Earth. Amanda had joined the space service because she wanted to learn about alien life. His engineer Carlos had grown up dreaming about the stars. The Zephyrians wanted to kill all of them. They wanted to kill Lisa's children. They wanted to kill everyone Carlos had ever known. They wanted to end the human species because they thought humans were like bugs that needed to be stepped on. "Set course for Earth," Jake said. His voice was calm, but inside he felt like a fire was starting to burn. "Maximum speed, we need to warn everyone." As his ship turned toward home, Jake kept thinking about the videos he had seen. Zephyrian soldiers shooting human children, Zephyrian ships bombing hospitals and schools, Zephyrian leaders sitting around tables, planning the death of everyone Jake had ever loved. The Zephyrians thought they knew humans. They thought humans would panic and run when attacked. They thought humans would be easy to kill, like all the other species they had destroyed. Jake looked out at the stars and made a promise. The Zephyrians were about to learn something new about humans. They were about to learn what happened when you cornered a species that refused to die quietly. The war was just beginning, and the Zephyrians had no idea what they had started. President William Carter stood in the big meeting room deep under the White House. The room was full of the most important people in human government. Generals, admirals, scientists, and politicians all sat around a huge table. Everyone looked tired and angry. It had been 1 week since Captain Morrison brought the terrible news from New Eden. 1 week since humanity learned that their alien friends wanted to kill them all. In that week, things had gotten much worse. General Patricia Hayes stood up to give her report. She was the head of all human military forces. Her face was hard as stone. "The attacks are getting bigger," she said. "We've lost contact with 23 colonies. That's almost half of all human settlements outside Earth." She pressed a button, and a big map appeared on the wall. Red dots showed where human colonies used to be. Most of them were now gray, meaning they were gone. The Zephyrians are using the same plan everywhere. They show up with lots of ships. They destroy everything from space. Then they land soldiers to make sure nothing is left alive. Admiral Tony Rodriguez, the head of the human space fleet, spoke next. "We tried to fight them at Horizon Station. We had 12 ships. They had over 50. Our ships are good, but they have better weapons and better shields. We lost all 12 ships. They lost none." Dr. Kevin Brooks from the intelligence service had the worst news. He was thin and pale, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. "We've been studying their communications. The Zephyrians aren't just attacking us. They're planning something they call the final cleaning. They want to kill every human in the galaxy within 6 months. President Carter felt his hands shake with anger. "How many ships do they have?" "At least 3,000, Admiral Rodriguez said. "Maybe more. They've been building this fleet for years while pretending to be our friends." "And we have 400 ships. Most of them are cargo ships or colony transports. We only have about 80 real warships." The room went quiet. Everyone knew what those numbers meant. The human military had been built for exploring and protecting colonies from pirates. It was never meant to fight a war against a huge alien empire. Commander Susan Mitchell, who was in charge of military planning, stood up. "Sir, I need to be honest. If we fight them the normal way, we will lose. They are stronger, they have more ships, and they know all our secrets." "So what do you suggest?" President Carter asked. "Surrender," said Senator Bob Williams. He was old and had always believed in peace. "Maybe we can negotiate. Maybe we can find some way to live together." "Doctor," Brooks shook his head. "Sir, I don't think you understand. They don't want to rule us. They don't want to make us slaves. They want us dead. All of us. They think we're like rats that need to be killed. But why? Asked Senator Williams. What did we do to them? Nothing, Dr. Brooks said. We exist. That's enough. They've done this to 17 other species. They make friends, they learn everything they can, then they kill everyone. It's how they work. President Carter looked around the room. These people were supposed to protect humanity. They were supposed to have answers, but they all looked lost and scared. What about the other aliens? Asked General Hayes. Surely someone will help us. No, Dr. Brooks said. We've tried to contact other species. Most of them are too scared of the Zephyrians to help. The few who might help are too far away. We're alone. The room fell silent again. Outside, President Carter knew that people were starting to panic. The news about the attacks was spreading. Families were trying to get their children back to Earth. Some people were even trying to leave the planet entirely. Sir, said Admiral Rodriguez quietly, there is one option we haven't talked about. What's that? We stop fighting fair. President Carter looked at him. What do you mean? The Zephyrians expect us to fight like the other species they've killed. They expect us to follow the rules of war. They expect us to only attack military targets. They expect us to try to save civilian lives. Commander Mitchell nodded slowly. What if we don't do what they expect? You're talking about war crimes, Senator Williams said, his voice shocked. No, said General Hayes. We're talking about survival. The Zephyrians have already decided to kill every human, every man, woman, and child. They're not following any rules. Why should we? President Carter felt something cold settle in his stomach. A year ago, he would have been horrified by this conversation. A year ago, he believed in laws and treaties and doing the right thing. But a year ago, he hadn't known that an alien empire was planning to murder his entire species. What exactly are you suggesting? He asked. Admiral Rodriguez looked around the room. We have weapons we've never used. Biological weapons, nuclear weapons, chemical weapons. We've had treaties against using them, but those treaties were with species that aren't trying to kill us all. We could target their civilian populations, said Commander Mitchell. Their trade routes, their colonies, make them hurt the way they're making us hurt. We could make weapons specifically designed to kill Zephyrians, added Dr. Sarah Newton, the head of the Weapons Research Program. We know their biology now. We could make diseases that only affect them. Senator Williams stood up. This is madness. If we do this, we become as bad as they are. No, President Carter said quietly. If we do this, we survive. If we don't, we die. All of us. He looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. They were good people. They had spent their lives trying to make the world better. They had believed in peace and cooperation and doing the right thing. But the Zephyrians had changed all that. They had shown humanity that sometimes the only choice was between becoming a monster and becoming extinct. Here's what we're going to do, President Carter said. We're going to fight. But we're not going to fight fair. We're not going to follow rules that our enemies have already broken. We're going to use every weapon we have. We're going to target everything they care about. We're going to make them sorry they ever heard of the human race. General Hayes smiled for the first time in days. What are your orders, sir? Convert every ship we have into a warship. Turn every factory into a weapons factory. Draft every person who can fight. And start working on weapons that will give the Zephyrians nightmares. President Carter stood up. They wanted a war. Now they're going to get one. But it won't be the war they expected. As the meeting ended and the leaders left to start preparing for war, President Carter stayed in the room alone. He thought about his daughter, who was safe on Earth for now. He thought about all the human children who had been killed on the colonies. He thought about the choice he had just made. The Zephyrians thought they knew humans. They thought humans were soft and weak and would give up easily. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 6 months had passed since the war began. Earth looked different now. The peaceful blue planet had become a giant weapons factory. Every city had new buildings that made guns, bombs, and ships. The night sky glowed red from all the factories, working around the clock. Dr. Carol Newman used to study plants. She had spent years learning about alien flowers and trees that could help humans grow food on new worlds. Now she stood in a secret laboratory under the Rocky Mountains, working on something that would have made her sick to think about before the war. "It's ready," she told General Frank Davis as he walked into her lab. The general was a big man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been fighting the Zephyrians for months and had seen too many human colonies burn. Carol pointed to a small container on her desk. It looked harmless, like it might hold medicine or vitamins. "This will kill every Zephyrian it touches within 4 hours. It spreads through their air systems. One container can kill everyone on a large space station." General Davis picked up the container and looked at it. "How does it work?" "Zephyrians breathe differently than humans," Carol explained. "Their lungs are more efficient, but that makes them weak against this particular virus. It attacks their breathing system and shuts it down." "Will it hurt humans?" "No. It only affects Zephyrian biology. We tested it on captured Zephyrian soldiers." Carol's voice was flat when she said this. A year ago, she would have cried thinking about experimenting on living beings. Now she felt nothing but satisfaction. "How many can you make?" "We can produce enough to hit 50 major Zephyrian worlds within a month." General Davis nodded. "Do it. Make as much as you can." In space, Captain Beth Turner commanded a ship called the UES Shadow. It was painted black and designed to be invisible to enemy sensors. Before the war, ships like this were used for exploring dangerous areas. Now they carried death to Zephyrian worlds. Beth looked at her cargo hold full of special bombs. Each bomb was designed to destroy things that Zephyrians cared about. Not military bases or weapon factories, but schools, hospitals, and places where Zephyrian families lived. "Captain," said her weapons officer, "we're approaching the Zephyrian colony of Alter Prime. Population is about 2 million. "Are there any military targets?" Beth asked. "Some defense stations, but mostly it's civilian." "Good. Drop the bombs on the civilian areas first. I want them to know how it feels to watch their children die." Beth had been a peaceful person before the war. She had joined the space service to explore new worlds and meet new species. But she had seen the videos from New Eden. She had watched Zephyrian soldiers shooting human children for fun. Now she felt no guilt about what she was doing. The bombs fell through Alter Prime's atmosphere like falling stars. Each one carried enough power to destroy several city blocks. The Zephyrians below had no warning. They were just living their lives when death fell from the sky. Beth watched the explosions through her ship's cameras. She thought about the human children on New Eden and felt good about what she was doing. On Earth, engineer Paul Martinez worked in a secret bunker deep underground. He was building weapons that pushed the limits of what was possible. Before the war, humans had ideas for terrible weapons but never built them because they were too dangerous. Now danger didn't matter. Only winning mattered. "The new torpedoes are finished," Paul told Defense Minister Karen Walsh when she visited his lab. "Each one carries an antimatter warhead." "How powerful are they?" Karen asked. "One torpedo can crack a planet's crust. If we hit a planet in the right spot, we can cause earthquakes that will destroy every city on the surface." Karen looked at the sleek metal weapons. They were beautiful in a deadly way. "How many do we have?" 50 so far. "We can make more, but antimatter is hard to produce." "Make as many as you can. I want to be able to threaten every important Zephyrian world." The war was changing in ways the Zephyrians had never expected. They had planned for humans to fight like every other species they had conquered. They expected humans to attack military targets, follow the rules of war, and try to protect innocent lives. Instead, humans fought like nothing the Zephyrians had ever seen. Human ships appeared out of nowhere and destroyed civilian targets before disappearing. Human weapons spread diseases that killed entire populations. Human soldiers showed no mercy to prisoners and no concern for Zephyrian civilians. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Roberts led the first human attack on a Zephyrian ground base. His soldiers moved through the enemy base like ghosts, using weapons that were designed to cause fear as much as death. "Sir," one of his soldiers said after they had taken the base, "there are Zephyrian civilians hiding in the lower levels. Families with children." Steve looked at the young soldier. The boy still had some innocence left in his eyes. "What do you think we should do with them?" "Let them go? They're not soldiers." "They're Zephyrians," Steve said. "Their species is trying to kill every human in the galaxy. Every Zephyrian child that grows up might become a soldier who kills human children. But sir, they're just kids." Steve remembered the videos from the colonies. Zephyrian soldiers had laughed while shooting human children. They had made games out of hunting human families. "The Zephyrians didn't care about our children. Why should we care about theirs?" The soldier looked uncomfortable but nodded. Steve gave the order, and soon there were no more Zephyrian civilians hiding in the base. News of human tactics spread through Zephyrian space like wildfire. For the first time in their long history, the Zephyrians were afraid. They had conquered 17 species, but none of them had fought back like this. Human ships attacked Zephyrian trade routes, destroying cargo ships full of food and medicine. Human scientists created weapons that targeted Zephyrian DNA specifically. Human soldiers poisoned water supplies and spread diseases in Zephyrian cities. The Zephyrians tried to negotiate. They sent messages offering to stop the war if humans would agree to live on just a few worlds. But humans weren't interested in negotiating anymore. President Carter's response was broadcast across the galaxy. "You wanted to kill us all. Now, we're going to kill you all. There will be no surrender, no mercy, and no peace until every Zephyrian is dead." Admiral Helen Cox commanded the largest human battle fleet ever assembled. Over 600 ships, all armed with the most terrible weapons humanity could create. They were heading for the Zephyrian home system, carrying enough firepower to destroy entire worlds. "Sir," her communications officer reported, "we're getting surrender offers from Zephyrian commanders across the galaxy. They're offering to stop fighting if we'll spare their homeworld." Admiral Cox looked at the messages for a moment, then deleted them all. "We don't accept surrenders. The Zephyrians taught us that mercy is weakness. Now they get to live with what they taught us." The human fleet continued toward the Zephyrian homeworld, carrying death and destruction that would end a species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. The Zephyrians had wanted to teach humans about war. Now they were learning that humans were very good students. 2 years had passed since the Zephyrians first attacked human colonies. Now Admiral Helen Cox stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UES Vengeance, as it led the largest human fleet in history toward the Zephyrian homeworld. Around her ship, 900 other human vessels moved through space like a pack of hungry wolves. The Zephyrian home system had once been beautiful. 3 planets covered in silver cities and floating gardens, space stations that looked like crystal flowers, trade ships moving between worlds like schools of fish. It had been the heart of an empire that ruled half the galaxy. Now it looked like hell. Human attacks over the past months had turned the outer planets into burning rocks. The space stations were twisted metal floating in clouds of debris. The few Zephyrian ships still moving were running away as fast as they could. "Admiral," said Captain Roy Williams from his fighter cockpit, "we're getting lots of surrender signals from the planet's surface. They're begging us to stop." Helen looked at the main screen. She could see the Zephyrian homeworld below, its silver cities dark and smoking. 2 billion Zephyrians lived on that planet. Once they had been the masters of the galaxy. Now they were hiding in bunkers waiting to die. "Ignore the surrender signals," Helen said. "Begin the final attack." The human fleet spread out around the planet like a net. Every ship carried weapons that would have been unthinkable before the war. Biological bombs that would poison the air, nuclear weapons that could burn entire continents, gravity bombs that could crack the planet's crust. On the planet's surface, General Nancy Price led human ground forces through the burning ruins of the Zephyrian capital city. Her soldiers wore special suits that protected them from the poisons and diseases they had released into the air. Around them, Zephyrian civilians ran through the streets, trying to escape death that came from every direction. "General," her intelligence officer reported, "we've found the main government bunker. The Zephyrian leaders are hiding inside." Nancy smiled. She had been fighting this war for 2 years. She had seen human colonies turn to ash. She had watched videos of Zephyrian soldiers torturing human prisoners. She had no mercy left in her heart. "Use the sonic weapons," she ordered. "I want them to suffer before they die." The sonic weapons sent sound waves through the bunker that drove the Zephyrians inside insane with pain. Nancy listened to their screams through her radio and felt satisfied. They had started this war by killing human children. Now they would end it by experiencing the same terror. Above the planet, Captain Beth Turner flew her stealth ship through the orbital defenses. Her cargo hold was full of the most deadly biological weapons humans had ever created. Diseases that attacked Zephyrian DNA, viruses that ate through their nervous systems, poisons that turned their own blood into acid. "Target the water treatment plants," Beth told her crew. "I want every drop of water on this planet poisoned within 6 hours." Beth had been a mother before the war. She had 2 children living on a human colony when the Zephyrians attacked. She never found out what happened to them, but she had seen enough destroyed colonies to know. The Zephyrians had taken everything from her. Now she was going to take everything from them. The bombs fell like rain across the planet. Each one carried death designed specifically for Zephyrians. The aliens had thought they were superior to humans. They had thought their technology and their experience would make them easy winners in any war. They had been wrong. Engineer Paul Martinez watched from his command ship as his special weapons hit the planet. The antimatter torpedoes struck the planet's crust with the force of small stars. The gravity bombs twisted the planet's surface into impossible shapes. The biological weapons spread through the air like invisible death. "Sir," his assistant said, "the planet's core is becoming unstable. If we keep hitting it, the whole world might break apart." Paul thought about this for a moment. Breaking apart an entire planet seemed like the right thing to do. The Zephyrians had tried to break apart the human species. Now they would know how it felt. "Keep firing," he said. Across the galaxy, other human fleets were finishing similar attacks on the last Zephyrian worlds. Every planet that had ever been home to Zephyrians was burning. Every space station they had built was twisted metal floating in space. Every ship in their once mighty fleet was either destroyed or running away to hide in empty space. The Zephyrian Empire, which had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years, was dying in a single day. President Carter watched the final battle from Earth's command center. Reports came in from across Zephyrian space. Planet after planet went silent as human weapons did their work. An entire species was being erased from existence. "Sir," his aide said quietly, "it's over. The last Zephyrian military base just went dark. There are no more organized forces left." Carter nodded. He thought about the choice he had made 2 years ago. The choice to abandon every rule of civilized warfare. The choice to fight without mercy or limits. The choice to become monsters in order to survive. It had worked. Humanity had won. But the victory felt strange and cold. On the Zephyrian homeworld, the attacks finally stopped. The planet was a broken ruin covered in poison clouds and radioactive craters. The silver cities were gone. The beautiful gardens were ashes. The 2 billion Zephyrians who had lived there were dead or dying. Admiral Helen Cox broadcast a message that would be heard across the galaxy by every surviving alien species. "This is what happens when you try to destroy humanity. We offered you friendship. You chose to make us your enemies. Now you know what human enemies look like." The few Zephyrian ships that had escaped the destruction fled to the edges of the galaxy. They would spend the rest of their lives running and hiding, the last survivors of a species that had made the mistake of underestimating human determination. Other alien species watched from far away and learned a lesson they would never forget. Humans were not the soft, weak creatures they appeared to be. When threatened with extinction, humans became something far more dangerous than any other species in the galaxy. The war was over. The Zephyrian Empire was gone. Humanity had proven that they could not be easily destroyed. But the victory came with a price. Humans had changed during the war. They had become harder, colder, and more willing to do terrible things to survive. As Human ships returned to Earth, carrying news of total victory. People celebrated in the streets, but some wondered what humanity had become in order to win. They had saved their species, but they had lost something else in the process. The galaxy was a different place now. Humans were no longer the newcomers asking for friendship. They were the species that had destroyed the most powerful empire in galactic history. Other aliens gave human ships a wide path when they met them in space. Humanity had learned to survive in a hostile galaxy. They had learned that sometimes the only choice was between becoming a monster and becoming extinct. They had chosen to become monsters, and they had become very good at it. The stars looked the same as they always had, but everything else had changed forever.